Well, Chris, thank you so much for accepting this invitation to talking with branders and to participate in our next issue on Branders Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
That is will be focused on design.
Mm-hmm.
So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I always like to start the conversation talking about branding. I would like to know what is branding for Chris Doe.
Well, I'm going to go with Marty Neumeier's definition of branding. Branding is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organization. And so it's not what you say it is, it's what they say it is.
Nice. Very simple, right?
I like to keep things simple if possible.
Okay, so is if you think that this is like a simple concept, why do you think that people always misunderstand or maybe make a confusion about branding and design?
Okay, it's a couple different reasons. One is because branding is a hot buzzword, and somewhere a few years back, people didn't want to say I make logos. I do branding, and the brand comes from a very simple tradition, mostly from cattle ranchers who would burn in a symbol into their cattle so that they would know this cow belongs to me versus you. So if you steal my cow and I see that mark, that brand, that's that hot iron scar that's left on the cow's hide, they know that's you've committed some kind of crime. And so I think in a simplistic way, people who make logos and icons and identity systems would call that branding. But branding is way bigger than that. That's just one small part. And so when we see the Nike swoosh, a very famous logo, they say, well, that's a Nike brand. And it's not, because if you buy a Nike shirt and it doesn't have the logo on it, but you know it's Nike, that's still the brand. Consequently, if you were to buy a knockoff product with the swoosh and you know it was a counterfeit, you would say, well, that's not the Nike brand. So a brand is an idea and it's a feeling. And this is still from Marty Neumeier. If enough people have a similar impression or gut feeling, then you have a brand. So obviously, the people who sign up for the Apple tribe, the Google tribe, the Samsung tribe, or whatever tribe you sign up for, well, obviously there's enough people who feel the same way as you do. So now you have a brand.
Amazing. All those examples were amazing. Well, let's talk about design. What do you think about this profession? What do you think about design? Because, well, I was checking some of your videos, and I know you have some hats and some shirts about God.
Yeah,
What
God
was
is a
that?
designer. I
Yeah,
have that hat
exactly.
right here. Yes.
So that's amazing. What do you think about this profession?
Okay. I'm a traditionally trained graphic designer, and I think I could not become a comic book artist because my drawing skills are not that good. So I chose the second best thing, which is to do graphic design, which is a combination of typography, images, illustration, and a whole bunch of other things put together. And I love design, but I think part of the problem has been that designers tend to paint themselves into a corner and label themselves very specifically. That if I'm a graphic designer, I solve graphic problems. If I'm an interior designer, I solve interior problems. But I like this much bigger definition of design, in that it's any course of action that is taken to go from an existing condition to a preferred one. So anybody can be a designer. My son can be a designer. An accountant can be a designer. Basically, if you look to improve something from the way it is to the way it should be, you're a designer and you're designing.
Amazing. So, what? Why do you think design is so important for brands?
Well, the part in which most people come in touch with a brand, it has some kind of physical manifestation. Usually, not always, but usually. So when Nike decides like they want to support athletes and true athletic or genuine athletic performance, they're going to make a shoe. So a designer then starts to figure out what's the best materials and shape that it's going to have in order to give that athlete a competitive advantage. And so that's the work of a designer. And then you enter into what kind of prints and colors and graphics go onto that shoe. That's part of the work of the designer. And then when it arrives in a store and it's in a package and there's marketing campaign like posters and graphics throughout the store, it creates a sense of feeling. So from the minute in which you come in contact with a company, its products and services, you're probably seeing, touching, feeling something that a designer has made.
Great. Well, I have a question that I would like to I would like to hear your opinion about this. Um, why do you think that the profession of design is not so valued for companies, organizations, from people?
Hmm. That's a really good question. I think design as a practice is fairly new, relatively speaking, to much more well-established professions, and I think that's part of it. It's newness, and it's a little mysterious and misunderstood, and part of that is to blame to society as a larger uh, example, but also to the individual practitioners, because you and I, we could both call ourselves designers, but do very different things. But if you and I were attorneys or doctors or surgeons, it would kind of be the same thing. And there would be a college or university, a body that would accredit us and say, like, you're certified, and you would lose your certification if you did something that violated the terms you practice something, and they would call that malpractice. But with design, it doesn't seem to have the same rigor and certification. So anybody literally can call themselves a designer. And I think that's part of the problem. The other problem is that the 19th, 20th century has been ruled by people who are very left brain, logical, numbers oriented, computer scientists, accountants, engineers, those kinds of people. And now we're shifting away from an information economy, which were ruled by left brain thinkers, into right brain thinkers, the creative economy. Because now we live longer, we have more than what we need, we make more money. Our standards of living, generally speaking, are way better than they were just 100 years ago. So the 21st century economy is really about creativity, because now that we can have lots of things, something weird has happened. Things are becoming dematerialized. You spend more money for fewer things. You think about, here we go. You think about your smartphone, right? This thing replaces like 10 different objects that you used to carry. So we're spending more money for fewer things. And so what we desire are what Daniel Pink calls transcendent experiences, something that stirs your heart and your soul. And Steve Jobs, when he whipped out the first generation iPad, he's like, it's magical. He literally used that word, it's magical. And in a lot of their marketing, the first iPod, they would say, fit 1,000 songs in your pocket. So you see the dematerialization now. I'm old enough that I used to buy and transport compact discs, CD, which were pressed with 12 to 16 songs from an artist. And I had these big binders, which would have, I think, 4 discs per sleeve, and I'd flip through them. That's literally how I had to carry my 1,000 songs in a giant, massive binder. Okay. And so that's what's happening. So now we want transcendent experiences. We will pay more to experience something than to have more things. And that's kind of like the role of creative human beings. And so I think the power is shifting. The people who have the power want to conserve it, while people like us want to help them transition. And there's a really good business reason why now too, because the most valuable companies in the world have less stuff, but greater mind and heart share. Look at Tesla. Tesla has surpassed all the other automotive makers in terms of its valuation, not in terms of how many cars they produce, not in terms of how many cars are on the road, but because people believe in this idea more than they believe in the previous car manufacturers, which is pretty astonishing. Netflix, last time I checked, was also worth more than Disney, which blows my mind because they have the heart of people.
That's crazy. Yeah. Well, I would like to hear a little bit about yourself. I would like to know, how did you become in this great entrepreneur? When did you decide that okay, I'm not going to work for a company. I'm going to work for myself, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to help others with my experience and with my history.
Yeah, okay. So I do want to take a step back. I do appreciate you calling me a great entrepreneur. I don't consider myself a great entrepreneur. I'm just an entrepreneur. Okay. I'm just trying to do the best that I can with the tools and resources, the constraints of what I have to be able to be an independent business owner. And I've been doing this since 1995. And I think initially it was just because I thought I had some talent and I desired to be the author of my own destiny, my own fate. I didn't feel like I was scared of the risk, and I would rather work harder to build my own brand versus build somebody else's brand. And that's what you do when you're working somewhere else, right? If you're not building your dream, you're building someone else's dream, and we can accept that. So along the way, I had to learn lots of things about business, about management, sales, about delegating work, about bidding and pitching, and all that kind of stuff. And I acquired this knowledge through trial and error and through experience. I've lost a lot of jobs. I've won a few jobs. And I've also had business coaching, somebody who I've worked with for over 10 years, who I met with for every single week without fail for 10 years. And somewhere along the way, some young people who used to work for me would ask me, Chris, you're so good with business. Can you share some of that information with us? And I was thinking, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to share it with you, but you can't afford to pay me what I'm worth. So here's the exchange. You ask me what you want to know, and I will then record it on video so that other people can learn. So now it's not a one-to-one transfer of information, it's a one-to-many, and that's kind of really what I believe in. So we started to do this thing, and it was one of the first successful business videos that we had produced, which caught me off guard a little bit because you really don't know what people tune in for. And it surprised me because I thought talking about numbers and profit margins and how to bid and how to delegate and how to include markup and expectations, all these kinds of things, I thought that was kind of boring stuff. But it turned out there was a real need for this because there's not a lot of creative people who understand how to talk about business. So I filled that need.
Amazing. And just to let you know that watching your videos and watching all your reading your the content you share on LinkedIn, that was like my inspiration to start with all what I'm doing right now. So thank you for sharing. And
You're welcome.
I would like to, well, I know you talk about different things. You talk about business, about entrepreneurship, about design. Uh, which one is like the topic that you like to talk more about?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't like to talk about any topic, to be honest. What I want to do is to be able to help the person who's in front of me. So right now, I don't have an agenda. I just want to try to answer the questions that you have. And you'll notice something, especially right now in the United States, there are two candidates, the Republican and the Democratic candidate. When they're asked the question, sometimes you sit there and think, what question are they answering? Because that's not the question I heard. And so they've practiced the art of politics, which is evasion, diversion, distraction, and outrage. And I just find that to be really not interesting to me. It's a real big turnoff. And so if you sat here in front of me and you asked me a question about my personal life, I'm not going to talk about business. And if you ask me about how do I price this job, I'm not going to tell you about my kids. It doesn't make any sense. So one of the art of conversation, if you really want to build rapport and connect with whoever's in front of you, you should learn to listen more than you speak. Like you have two of these and you have one of these. So the proportion should be 50, 50 to one and 25 to the other. So I really just do want to listen to what it is that you're asking and then do my best to reflect and then articulate whatever it is that I have to share with you in this moment. So I have no preferred topic.
Okay, amazing. I understand. I completely understand. Uh, well, what would you, what would be your advice for all these new entrepreneurs and all these new designers that are thinking about starting their own businesses?
Okay, I'm going to say this in a couple of different ways. If you're just starting out, I'm going to say try your best to shadow somebody who is a successful business person and make a deal with them to say, I'm pretty good at design. I want to work for you. And part of the deal is I'm not going to be as aggressive in negotiating my salary, because if you include me in the conversations where you're talking to clients and how you're running your company, I want to see part of that, because that's part of the education I never got. So that's what I would do. I wouldn't just rush out there and try and start a business, because there's so many things that you don't understand. Most creative people, including myself, like if I'm talking to my 22-year-old self when I started my company, I thought it was all about the talent. The talent at the end of the day wins and beats everything, and it trumps all. And that is not the case at all. Because in order for somebody to recognize and see your talent, they must be able to find you first. So the first thing is really about marketing and understanding how to build a network of people and to position yourself in a place in which you have a high degree or possibility of success. Like, I need to know what you do before I can even hire you. So that's one thing I would do. The other thing I would do is advise them to go and read a few books. I know no young person is going to listen to this and then rush to the bookstore or the library and rent a bunch of books or borrow a bunch of books and start reading them. It just doesn't happen. I wouldn't do it either. Like, I'm a late bloomer when it comes to the kind of books that I'm reading today. I'm reading mostly nonfiction, a lot of really quote unquote boring books. And I'm actually literally going through and making notes. And here's the thing. I was just thinking about this the other day when I was reading this book. We would all like to have superpowers, right? Like, I might want to turn invisible or have super strength or fly or teleport. Those things are all really cool. But one thing that would be really cool is the ability to read your mind. And books are, in a form, you're reading somebody else's mind quite literally. These are their thoughts, life experiences, and lessons learned that they're going to put in front of you. And if you read it, you're reading their thoughts. And I think that's really cool, especially if you're reading the thoughts of really smart, experienced people who have a positive mindset.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Um, well, just Chris, just to finish, I would like to know more about, well, I would like to know more, and I would like that you share a little bit more about your company, about the future. What do
Sure.
you do? How can people can reach you if they want to know something?
Okay, fantastic. I had mentioned that I started my company in 1995 when I was, I think, 22 years old. And we had worked in the service industry for 20 plus years, working with some of the biggest ad agencies and brands in the world and some of the biggest bands in the world. But since 2018, the end of 2018, I had made the complete switch with the encouragement of one of my creative directors to stop doing client work and focus on 100% of my energy and the company's resources towards educating other people. So now we're a team of a little bit more than 12 people based mostly in Los Angeles that create content on multiple channels like YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to try to teach people who consider themselves a creative human being and want to learn to speak the language of business, not just speak the language of design. We're trying to help people become bilingual in that way. And thankfully, we've been able to grow a pretty sizable audience. So if you want to find us, search for us on YouTube and everywhere else. But we're the future, and we're spelled without an E. So the future, no E, because we dropped the E. It had to go. The E had to go, ego. And the future is here. And if you look for us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and everywhere else, you're going to be able to find us. And I have a personal account, which I kind of write and manage myself. And I'm at the Chris Do, D-O.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, the last question: what is your favorite social media? Because I know you interact with people in YouTube, on Twitter, and LinkedIn. What do you think is like the one for you, and maybe the most important for you?
That's a good question. It's a complicated answer I'm going to give to you.
I know,
It's
I
like
know.
you have children. You're not supposed to pick favorites. You love them all. There's some that are harder to love than others, I want to say. If I want to have really quick response and dialogue with somebody, I'm going to be on Twitter. But Twitter has escaped me in terms of like how to grow, because I'll pick up a few hundred new followers like a week, or and that's just, it's just hard. And maybe because I'm late into the game, or maybe writing isn't my gift, and I get that. But I've been able to grow really quickly on Instagram just by teaching people. And I think Instagram has become my current like obsession, because I'm able to combine my thoughts, words, and images into a sequential format to tell the story and to teach people. I love the immediacy. I love the ability to reach out and have conversations with people. And I think that's really cool. YouTube is where we got our start. So we're not going anywhere in terms of YouTube. But YouTube is a lot of work. It's like writing, shooting, editing, color correction. The team adds graphics, and then it's a lot of work. But we love it because it's so evergreen. YouTube allows us to keep content up,
Mm-hmm.
and it's highly searchable because it's owned by Google. That makes sense. So that years from now, when you're looking for an answer to a problem, and if we've done it, it will show it to you. And I think that's the coolest thing.
Amazing. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time, for sharing your knowledge and your experience here with our audience, with the Branders Magazine audience. Well, uh, I hope you continue doing this amazing work that is are um, inspiring a lot of people in the world. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Luis.
Well, have a good day. Well,
You
have a
too.
good
Take
night,
care.
I think.
Yeah, it's almost night, but
Yeah.
thank you. You too.
Thank you. Bye.